Welcome to PatsCast. This is episode 3 for May 15th, 2018. I'm Matt.
Chris.
Cuts to the middle, fakes the shot. That's unbelievable from Jesse Dingril. Back on the Pats with numbers 4-on-2. Steve across the line, right side push. A time lead onto the slot. Henry shoots and he scores. Nick Henry has his 35th.
Okay, today's episode we are doing Memorial Cup introduction and review of the teams. Now that we know who's coming to play in Regina, we are going to go through the teams. We're going to start here with Cadia Bathurst Teton. Are we going to do Teton, or are we just going to call him Titan now that you're coming down to the prairies?
Yeah, I don't know. My French accent isn't great, so try Teton.
We'll try it. You guys can laugh at us. That's fine. I didn't get a lot of chance to see these guys. They did have that one game on Sportsnet, game 1. I started watching that, and they looked pretty outclassed by
the Armada.
Armada scored how many goals pretty quick there in quick succession. I mean, that's as much as I got to see, but obviously the Teton came back and dominated the rest of the series, it seemed like.
Yeah, they had a couple of games with scoring 5 goals, and it sounds like they have a pretty deep and balanced lineup. Those 2 5-goal games, they had 5 different goal scorers. They're
one of the things, I mean, what we try and do is I looked at some stats. Nobody really stands out on that team as, someone with 120 points or anything like that. They seem to spread out the points through the lineup.
Yeah, you usually think the Q, they have some high scorers there. It's kind of a wide open game, and you get some guys with some pretty high-end stats, but there was nobody over 76 points on the team. They had one guy 42 goals and one guy at 39 goals, and the rest are all in the 20s. But they had 6 guys over 20 goals.
Right, that's not to say they don't score goals.
Yeah, no, and they had 14 players with 10-plus goals, so
right.
They can put the puck in the net. They were top 3 goals scored in the league, but they were also top 3 in goals against.
Oh.
So, yeah, quite balanced.
They score and they get scored on.
No.
They in a good way.
Yeah.
Goals against.
Top 3. Yeah. So they don't give up a lot of goals.
So they got a good defense, a lot of depth up on the forwards. It sounds like they're scoring goals with 3, even on their 4th line, possibly. Could be tough matchups for coaches coming in. A team like Swift Current, they have top line, their second line.
Yeah, they don't really roll 4 lines.
Yeah.
Their 4th line is pretty quiet. They spend a lot of time.
They taper off pretty quick there.
They spend a lot of time keeping that bench warm. So
good. Anything else you want to talk about these guys? Any other highlights? Any
not
names
really.
we should be looking out for?
No, Dobson's probably the most notable name. He's a really high prospect, 17-year-old D-man. He had 17 goals in the regular season. Not bad for a 17-year-old D-man. That's pretty impressive. He only had 3 in the playoffs, but sounds like his stock's pretty high for the upcoming draft. Their captain Jeffrey Vale, he sounds like he had 39 goals, so he's a guy to look at. And Mitchell Balmus, he had 42, so he's one of their snipers. And then other than that, then the rest, there's quite a few guys that scored 20, 15, 20, 25 goals. So a lot of guys to keep an eye on. It might be a tough game, even though,
I don't know how to predict these games either. Last season, you looked at it, there was blowouts. WHL got blown out. I think one of the OHL games was a blowout too. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's a crapshoot, right?
Yeah.
You just, most of the coaches just saying we're just going to play our game. You can watch a video on them, but you still just got to play your game.
Well,
it's a one game.
That's the thing. We think we don't know anything about these guys, and we're just guys sitting in the basement. These coaches say we don't even know that much about them. They know as much as they can from what they can find out, but
yeah, they just watch some video. It's not like they're going to have guys at the game scouting them.
And it's one game. It's not even you don't get a 7-game series to get to learn these guys and learn the style. You just have to play your game, and hopefully it is better than theirs for that day, because it's a quick tournament. When you look at it, you got 3 games, and you have to, if you want to have a good shot at winning, you got to run the table.
Yeah, for sure.
To go through the semifinal, that's an extra game. That's a hard way to go.
Now in goal for the Tetons, it's Evan Fitzpatrick. He was the World Junior backup for this year's Team Canada. He had a poor start to his season. He was in Sherbrooke. He had some pretty poor stats. I didn't look at the team's record or anything, but once he got traded to the Tetons, his season kind of turned around. His goals against average went down over a whole goal, and his save percentage went over 900, as it was under 875 in the first half. So
that's with a lot of these teams. It's sometimes it's pre-trade deadline and post-trade deadline, right? These teams can be so different. So when you're looking at stats and things, it can be somewhat misleading, and you kind of just have to look at the team who's here now, the way they got through the playoffs and how they looked in playoffs, and that's who you're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, in the end, the records are, who cares, right? Like, you can win 52 games and end up losing like Moose Jaw. So
yeah, no, it sounded like it was a bit of a flyer picking him up, but it turned out for the best for them.
Okay, everyone, we got Steve McLean here from OHL Fanboys Podcast. Steve's here to give us a bit of insight on the Hamilton Bulldogs. Steve, why don't you give us a bit of an intro, let us know who you are and what you do out there in Ontario.
Well, for your listeners who are unaware, I am a podcaster like yourselves. We're running the OHL Fanboys Podcast. We're in our 4th season, just about to wrap up our 4th season. I think we've surpassed 150 episodes or so now. And myself, along with my partner Brian Thompson, we're fans of the OHL, like you guys are of the Pats. You know, I'm a Guelph Storm fan. He's a Windsor Spitfires fan, and we've been having fun with the show and for a few years. And I usually get out to the Memorial Cup every year, and it's a fun time. And this year it's going to be the Hamilton Bulldogs representing the OHL, and it's been a heck of a ride for them in the playoffs. Every all year really, the Sioux has been favored to be the team to beat. I think they're ranked number 1 in the CHL, nearly wire to wire for the season, other than a couple of weeks here and there. And they just seem like an unbeatable team. They had a 23-game win streak at one point during the season, and then they got into the playoffs, and things, they swept Saginaw in the first round, but things kind of seemed to, I don't want to say fall apart, because they obviously managed to get to the final, but they had a really tough second-round series against the Allentown Attack, a series in which they were down 2-1 at one point. Game 7 of that series ended up the Sioux winning 9-7 with an empty netter, so that was a pretty crazy game. And then they had a heck of a series with the Kitchener Rangers that went 7 games, home team winning all 7, and Game 7 went to double overtime. So they ended up kind of going into the finals pretty tired, and whereas the Hamilton Bulldogs got through the Eastern Conference with 5-game series all the way across the board. I don't think anyone was shocked that Hamilton could hang with the Sioux Greyhounds, but I think everyone was a little surprised that Hamilton was just better all around than the Sioux for the entire series.
Right, and we're here to talk about Hamilton, but from outsiders looking in, we fully expected Sioux to be here next week with us.
Once they had that big winning streak, then you kind of ears were perking up, and kind of taking a look and keeping an eye on them, and then you see them at number 1 the whole season, kind of like what happened to us last year,
And same thing with Moose Jaw, right? People out east and further west were probably thinking, oh, well, it'll be Sioux, Moose Jaw, and then someone from the Q. But, I mean, this is junior hockey, and this is why we love sports, because not what you expect always happens.
No, not in the slightest. As we see all 3 teams that won the regular season titles across the CHL this year were not going to be represented at the Memorial Cup. Blainville, Sioux, and Moose Jaw. So, but in the end, it was all the teams that finished in second, I believe, in the regular season that took home the league titles. But Hamilton, and I think coming into this, Hamilton actually has the least amount of points in the regular season of the 4 teams coming into this Memorial Cup, or at least of the 3 champions. But they're make no mistake about it. This is a really hard team to play against. They're just deep all the way around. Defensively, they were great against the Sioux, who really seemed to rely heavily on the top six as the playoffs went on. Of course, they ended up having a bit of an injury problem with one of their star players, 30-goal scorer, Hayden Verbeek, went out with, I believe it was a broken wrist. And then during the finals themselves, defenseman Connor Timmins was a big loss for them. He got a concussion in game 5 of the final, I believe. So, just sometimes things don't work out for teams. It's tough to see for the Sioux. Like Swift Current, they were on a long championship drought. 25 years since their last Memorial Cup appearance, 26 years since their last OHL title in '92. And they had a team that looked like was going to do this a couple of years ago in 2015. And then they ran into Connor McDavid and the Erie Otters in the conference final, and that pretty much ended their run. But if you remember that year, the Oshawa Generals won not just the OHL, but they won the Memorial Cup. For the teams that just seemed to be very well balanced, and it was one of those classic, well-built playoff teams. And Hamilton is really reminding me of that Oshawa team right now. Whereas Hamilton might have a bit more star power than Oshawa did in that Memorial Cup, they just seem built solid from top to bottom. They seem to be relatively healthy. Robert Thomas has been playing absolutely unbelievable for them as of late. Caden Fulcher has been giving them solid goaltending, and one of the underrated pickups of the trade deadline was Riley Stillman from the Oshawa Generals. He was just fantastic in the final, especially in Game 6. He got a couple game-tying goals at Cops Coliseum for the series. It just, I fully suspect Hamilton is going to come out very well in this tournament.
Yeah, Robert Thomas and Stillman definitely stood out to me watching the couple games I did. Like, they were top of my list that, I really noticed them. Stillman only had 5 goals in the regular season, but he had 5 in the playoffs alone, so he looked good on the back end. And Thomas he just seemed strong on the puck all the time, and he had lots of scoring chances. Like, he could have had a lot more goals. He ended up having 12 in the playoffs, and he looked really good out there.
Yeah, Robert Thomas was a huge pickup for the Bulldogs at the deadline this year. He was a former captain of the London Knights, and I think even out west, everyone knows how the juggernaut that the London Knights are, so you're getting a good player there. But one of the other kind of neat storylines from this Hamilton team are all the Flint Firebirds that are on this team. 4 of them, to be exact, with I think it was Ryan Moore, Nicholas Camano, Will Bitton, and Nicholas Mattinen. 4 of those guys all used to play for the Firebirds, and their head coach, John Gruden, was a former coach of the Flint Firebirds, who I'm not sure how familiar people out west are with the story, but their first year in the league was just 3 years ago when they were former Plymouth Whalers. They moved to Flint to become the Firebirds, and it just became a bit of a gong show in that the owner, there's a kind of a situation there where the owner's son was on the roster after a game one night. After a win, actually, the owner fired the entire coaching staff, which the head coach was John Gruden, who's now head coach of the Hamilton Bulldogs. The players in protest all threw their jerseys down in the owner's office, kind of Rudy style, and the owners were forced to hire the coaches back. And then the league kind of said, okay, we're going to give you a pass on this, but keep your nose clean. Don't stop meddling in team affairs. Even though you're the owner, you're not really all that well versed in hockey ops. A few months down the line, he fired the coaches again, to the point where now the owner is he owns the team, but he's under sanction by the OHL to pretty much not interfere in anything to do with the team for the next 5 years. So John Gruden found himself a place in Hamilton. He's really turned that franchise around. When they just showed up from Belleville 3 years ago, they were a non-playoff team their first year in Hamilton. Last year they went out in the first round. So a lot of people figured Hamilton had a decent squad this year, but I don't think it was really until after that trade deadline when people thought this could be a team that's really special.
Yeah, those guys getting out of Flint, they're pretty weak, so that turned out good for them.
Yeah, Will Bitton showed up in Hamilton early last season, actually, so he's been with the Hamilton Bulldogs for a while now, but a lot of those other guys came over from Flint. There was an early season trade with those guys back in November, and then a little bit more happening at the deadline. That's when they also brought in Robert Thomas and Riley Stillman. So, but make no mistake, this team this team, the pieces were there at the start of the season, and they played well enough throughout the first half of the season to make sure that ownership or GM Steve Staios had to make those moves to put them over the top, and it really did. And I know a lot of people, even when they got to the conference finals this year, thought, well, maybe Kingston could be a team that knocks off Hamilton. But, Hamilton has just been rolling. They've looked good no matter who they've played. And I'm really interested to see how they match up with some of these other teams in the tournament this year. I'm expecting, if I had to pick, I'm expecting, I don't want to say that Hamilton's going to win the whole thing, but I'd expect them to be in the final on the 27th.
We want you to pick. Who's your pick?
Well, actually, you'll have to listen to the OHL Fanboys podcast to get his pick.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just about to say, to do a shameless plug here, we actually just had our show this week, our Memorial Cup preview show, come out. We run down all the teams, and Brian, myself, and Nate Sager from Sportsnet, we kind of mainly talked the OHL in the first half of the show, but then we had on Andy Eve from ESPN in Seattle. He broke down the Broncos and the Pats for us, and then we had Patrick McNeil, who's the play-by-play announcer for the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles in the Q. He came on to talk a lot about the Katie Bathurst Teutons. So if people want to know my thoughts, after they listen to this show, they should head on over to the OHL Fanboys on iTunes or at OHLFanboys.com, and they can hear who Brian and I think are going to win the Memorial Cup this year.
Absolutely, everyone. Share the love. They got a really good program going out there.
I listened to it this afternoon before recording this one, and that interview with Patrick McNeil, it was good because I don't know anything about the Teton or anything going on in the Q really. So
I got a question. With your experience watching Memorial Cups, I have far less experience. Do you notice a different trend and style of play through the different leagues? Just being more exposed to the OHL this year, it felt really run and gun, high scoring. Then I go back and watch OHL, and it's a little bit more defensive, a little bit slower, maybe not quite as quote unquote exciting. Is that something? Do the leagues trend to something, or is it different year by year?
It can be different year by year. I know, in the past there was always that trend of the Q being the real run and gun fancy play style, the W, of course, being the really hard hitting style, big farm fed boys out there, and the OHL kind of landing somewhere in between. Lately, I find more leagues, sometimes the Q can be still a little bit more not as physical as the other leagues, I find, but at the same time, when you get to a tournament like this, you've got at least three, but usually four pretty good teams in this tournament. They know what they need to do, what they need to accomplish to try and beat these teams. And some nights, you just see a team go out there and they just don't have it. But I think a lot of the times that these teams they're prepared for one another and they kind of play to their opponent. And you see a lot of a game that wouldn't look at a place in their own leagues.
Right on. We're getting excited here. Obviously, we had a bit of downtime with our team with the 42 days, but it's picking up here now. It's Memorial Cup week. We got the Eagles playing here Thursday. The city's starting to perk up a little bit. You're starting to see the trademarked vehicles and the signage out there. I don't know how you feeling, Chris.
Yeah, no, I'm getting pretty excited. So yeah, it was nice to get your insight on Hamilton here, and we can let you go and get back to work and make some money so you can come spend it out here.
Yeah. Everyone, again, that's Steve McLean with OHL Fanboys Podcast. Give them a listen. Sounds like they've got a really good recap as well, and you'll get to hear his thoughts on Acadia, Bathurst, as well as his picks on who's going to win.
Yeah. Thanks again, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Good. Right now we'll move on to our buddies over there in Swift Current. Overall, they far outplayed Everett. Everett, other than that one period in Game 2, I think they were outclassed by this team in Swift Current.
Yeah, for the most part, I think Swift Current carried most of the games. Yeah, other than that Game 2 where Everett was up and they kind of blew it, that was a tough loss, I think, for Everett. That might have changed the series in that 3-goal lead that they gave away. Steenbergen scoring late in that game with the goalie pulled to tie it up, and then they win it in overtime. That was a big win for Swift Current. You don't want to be going back to Everett down 2-0.
I think the biggest surprise was how well they played in Everett. To win those 2 games, I didn't expect them to do that.
Yeah, well, that game 3, Godden had the hat trick. He was a one-man show for Swift Current. He kind of got that lucky shorthanded goal late in the third. There's a rebound.
As much as I don't like Godden, he outmanned that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he earned that goal.
He got to the rebound, swung his stick at the bouncing puck, and it went in.
Yeah.
You got to give him credit for the effort there, and then he wins it in overtime, and all of a sudden, boom, they're up 2-1.
He's got the team on his back, I think, through that series.
Yeah, definitely.
There's the debate between Skinner or him deserving MVP. Obviously, Godden received it, and I think when you look at those games, he won that game single-handedly. Skinner had his moments, but if you look through that series with Lethbridge when Godden was out, Swift Current was terrible.
Yeah, they gave up 5 goals both games in Lethbridge. Skinner didn't look good there either, and
we lit up Skinner a few times too.
Exactly. So I was kind of like they were talking Skinner or Godden. I was like, well, I didn't really like the looks of Skinner in some of the games. He struggled in the Lethbridge series, kind of struggled against Regina. So he definitely played better against Moose Jaw and Everett, Ended up with 6 shutouts. That was the big stat, right? You see a guy with 6 shutouts in the playoffs. That's pretty solid. So. And
you mentioned Steenbergen. Now, he had goals against us. He had a hat trick one game.
Yeah, he kind of fell off the map a little bit. Like you didn't hear his name much. You seen Heponiemi doing his thing, controlling the play in the offensive zone. He looked good out there. But Steenbergen, he kind of struggled down the stretch. He had 6 goals against us. 3 in the one game.
It's kind of a microcosm of his season.
Yeah, he starts off real hot.
Really good.
Yeah, he had 4 against Moose Jaw, and then he only had 1 goal against Lethbridge and only 1 goal against Everett. But that 1 goal was pretty big for.
It was a
season
2. Yeah, a series changer.
Yeah.
You could argue.
Yeah,
right?
that was a huge goal. That's the only one he scored though.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not even that he was getting some looks, but not the looks you'd be expecting him. You didn't hear his name that often.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm saying.
He really had a ton of looks on the power play against us, like that cross crease, cross ice one timer.
He just sat there.
Brett Hull, Stamkos, Ovechkin style.
Yeah.
And he picked us apart with that. But looks like the other teams kind of adjusted to that and played a little better defensively.
Going back to Heponiemi, I mean, I didn't think he would win MVP because he wouldn't have the stats. But boy, watching that guy, his playmaking ability is it's unbelievable. I was watching one of the games against Everett. He just did this beautiful little saucer pass just over a guy's stick, and it landed right where he was onto the other Broncos stick. And it was just, if you're watching this team, if you're going to these games and watching Swift Current, keep an eye on him and just watch he's a small guy. You'll notice how small he is, but he is slippery, he's elusive, and what he can do with that puck is...
Yeah, excellent hands.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That being said, I didn't really want Swift to win, but now that they're here, I'm hoping for some redemption.
Yeah,
here, folks.
Let's beat them again.
And we might have been getting some grief. You still see people saying, oh, it's so nice to have Swift Current, and maybe, you know what it is. It's good. It's good for the rivalry. It's good for the Memorial Cup to get, frankly, ticket sales up a little bit. It sounded like they were hurting a little bit. I think they must be doing much better now.
Yeah, I looked today. It's there's still quite a few seats for all the games available. So there's some good seats.
Even WHL games.
Yeah. So
I don't know. People need to get off their duffs here because this is going to be a good.
Yeah, it's going to be
great tournament.
Yeah, there's 4 excellent teams here. So.
And anyways, going back to Swift Current, I was trying to think how many of them were rooting for us last year.
Yeah, I don't know.
0.
Yeah.
They really don't have a like for us. So this is that game, I believe they play Wednesday. WHL and Pats are on Wednesday. That is going to be
Yeah, that's going to be a good game.
That's going to be a good one. We got to get that chant going early, folks. I know there's
Skinner
gonna,
chant, yeah.
there's going to be lots of cowbells there. We need to keep them quiet and overpower them.
Yeah. Yeah, once we get on Skinner, he tends to give up them in bunches here.
He can give up a good 7 goals.
Yeah. Let's see a snowman out there.
But that, we need to play hard. We're coming out Friday playing Hamilton. That's tough game.
I think that might be the strongest team, but it's so hard to tell. But
okay, so getting into strongest teams, who's your pick here?
Yeah, it's gonna be so tough. Like, Hamilton looks good. We know what Swift Current is, but we can beat them. I know, like, we had them Game 7, 1-goal game.
Yeah.
They're beatable. We know they're beatable. We're familiar with them, right? So it's that unfamiliarity with Hamilton and the Titans. I think Hamilton looks pretty good. They look good on TV when we were watching them.
From what we can tell, these teams don't seem overly injured. I remember watching post-game interviews, post-series interviews last year when the Pats lost out to Seattle. Our guys were wrecked. They were just absolute messes. They were. Adam Brooks, his face was just a mess. Yeah. He has black eyes, bloodshot eyes. Wagner was all injured. Everyone was just
Henry
beat
was
down.
Injured, yeah.
It doesn't seem like these teams have gone through wars like that. I think Swift did, but they've had a chance to recover playing.
Yeah, like Godin was out for a little bit, and Manulin was out against us, but it sounds like they're pretty healthy now.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like Steve said, Hamilton seems pretty healthy, whereas Sioux was the team that had the injury problems.
Yeah,
missing a couple key guys in that last game. So, and then the Titans, I'm not too sure about them, but I don't know. It's gonna be.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm pumped up for this. This is the first time. I mean, I've always kept an eye on the Memorial Cup, but this is gonna be. I'm excited. It's been building up for this for all season. We've been following it and kind of predicting the teams, and here we are. We're a few days away, and it's gonna go fast. It's gonna be exciting, and my heart says the Pats can win this if they get there, and they've used these 42 days responsibly, and they've prepared properly. There's no reason they can't win. They're not. I don't feel obviously I'm biased, but I don't feel like they're getting the free pass. Whoop-de-doo, here we are. We're in the Memorial Cup. We didn't earn it. They're a fantastic team. And if anyone doubts that and they show up and they don't play them hard, I think they'll find out. Yeah,
well, we had, one of the best records in the second half, right? Like we said, they were right there with Moose Jaw and Swift Current. So when we took Swift Current to Game 7, I think we'll do fine.
And speaking of that, they have the confidence, too. They know they're a good team. They took Swift to 1 goal was the difference in that series. Game. So they took them farther than ever, played them harder.
Yeah, for sure. So now speaking of the Pats, I did get out to see one of the mock games last Thursday. They had some guys in from the U of R, U of S, a couple expats, like Connor Hobbs was there. They had a few other guys, the young guys that probably won't be making the lineup for the Memorial Cup. You got your Nyhoff, Galvis, Harkins, Creta. They're all there playing against the Pats.
So,
quote unquote,
who was in goal for the Pats?
Both goalies were playing, Paddock and Kubik, and then they switched at about halfway through the game.
That interview with Paddock, did he allude to who was starting goal?
I don't think so. I think he has his mindset, but he hasn't said anything.
Typical.
I heard an interview with Phil Andrews. He thinks leaning towards Paddock playing.
Right, yeah.
Paddock starting.
Yeah.
So, you don't know, right? Like, it's tough to say, right? We don't know. As for other lineup issues here, there could be a little bit of a shakeup here. Jesse Gabriel was not at that mock game Thursday night. Ooh. So I don't know what's up with that. Maybe he's not playing. There might be a rumor out there that he's no longer with the team, but obviously the team's not going to say that. Been some rumblings out there.
Interesting.
I know this means absolutely nothing, but May 9th he changed his Facebook profile picture from a Pats picture back to a Boston picture.
Wow.
So that's
that's some good sleuth work. Wow, that is very interesting.
That could be a big loss and
bit of drama. Why? Okay, but why? Why would they do that?
I don't know. Like if something happened off the ice there or whatever. I don't know. Like he was injured. He had sounded like a pretty serious ankle injury there in the playoffs, and that's why he didn't look. He was out those couple games, and the game he was in, he didn't look good at all. He wasn't obviously near 100%. So who knows? Like,
I do recall that interview with Phil, though. He specifically mentioned that he was good to go. But I mean,
who knows?
Phil's not in the coaching staff, so
yeah, and I don't think they'll want to let the cat out of the bag. So, but I know Legion in this mock game on Thursday night. Legion got a lot of time with Lecition and Oxenden on quote unquote the second line. I'd say, they played the whole game together. The first line was Hebig was centering Steele and Henry. So, but I mean that was one game. They could have switched it up. So,
I still like them apart.
Those were the two solid lines that mock game I watched Thursday night. So,
you
can split them up because then you still got Bradley. Like Bradley, quote unquote, was on the third line in that game, right?
Right.
So
that's a good third line.
Yeah. So,
Do you know if this is true with Gabriel? Does it make you wonder about Solution? I mean that decision's done and gone now.
Yeah, we released him for Gabriel.
Yeah.
So. Ish. So I don't know. It's interesting. Well, maybe he'll be there, but I don't know. It sounds like he might not be there.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Your first source for Pats news. I don't know. We're getting down to the wire here. It's real now.
Yeah, it's go time here right away.
It is.
So.
It's go time. Yeah.
So
every team, these other teams, they got. It was kind of cool. They all ended on the same Sunday.
Yeah, same day. All three.
Kind of neat to watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like. Sunday, NFL Sunday, last day of the play or regular season. Everything's figured out on the same day. You don't have to wait, and they all get the same time off, so no excuses there. I mean, obviously we got way more, but
Swift will have a little bit of a extra rest. They're here, kind of quote unquote here already.
Yeah.
But sounds like Hamilton had one day off. They were off Monday and back at it on Tuesday practicing. So
yeah.
I guess today. So. I guess I'll be flying out pretty quick here and then getting ready to go because they play Friday night against us, so they're the first ones.
Okay, we never did get our picks in here. So
yeah, I know.
I'm gonna say Hart, Pats. I think they really can do it. But if I had to, and I don't bet on sports because I would have lost my house by now. If I had to bet, I would go with Swift. It pains me to say it. I'll never ring a cowbell, but I think they went through probably the hardest division in the CHL, and they've proved themselves. So
yeah, they survived.
Yeah.
They went the distance against us, against Moose Jaw.
Yeah.
Went through a pretty good Lethbridge team.
And Skinner is playing.
Right now, he's playing good.
Really good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like I said, I'm for the Pats. I'd love to see them win.
And I think I think they genuinely can. I really do.
Like I'd go with Hamilton. I kind of like their game. Yeah, I got nothing against Swift other than I don't like them. But I mean, they are a very solid team. Like I'd say Regina over Hamilton in the final.
Right on. I like it.
So
okay.
maybe we'll kick Swift out in the semi.
No, they can get last place.
Okay, we'll go right to the final. Okay.
We're gonna sweep. No, I don't think we'll sweep. I think we'll have a loss in there. And then we can win the semi and then win it at home. Boy, I hope the hometown crowd makes the difference too.
Yeah, we need to be out there cheering loud for these guys because it's not going to be a full barn of our fans. So
no, there's going to be tourists and
there'll be fans from
and all that
the other
kind
teams
of stuff.
too. The ones that are there, we need to cheer loud. So
right on, people. We're not going to get this again for a while, so let's get out there, support them. Hopefully, you've got your tickets if you have the money. I'll be honest, I couldn't get all of them. I do have a ticket to the final, which I hope pans out for us. So just speaking about what we're going to do for coverage that week. What we hope to do is reports after the Pats games. We're not going to do every game of the other divisions because I'm sure there'll be other podcasts doing that. But since we're Pat centered, we'll do recaps of the Pats game. We'll get it out the next day. Not too long, but just so you guys can get a little update how that game went and what to look for in the next one.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. We'll have quick, short ones here.
Yeah.
Nothing too involved, but
Chris has got tickets to all of them, so he'll be our eye in the sky kind of guy reporting back to us. So
yeah, I'm sure we can probably hit up Steve for a little more insight as well. He'll be here all week, so
right. Okay, anything else you want to say?
No, that's good. I'm good.
Good. Well, I hope everyone enjoys the week. Have some fun at the Eagles concert if you're going, and it's gonna be a good week.
Definitely.
See you guys.